What's interesting about what's on the board here, there's a lot of words that have been placed here, but they connect because when you understand what's going on and how the system is set up in the legal, you'll begin to understand the choices and where you are, and that you got to really calm down and realize that there had to be choice. So when the birth records were being put together, which is the beginning of the registration system, we can go back to the time of Christ where Augustus Caesar declared, let's register the world, let's tax the world, is how it's written in other. Why would it say let's tax the world? Well, because that system was based on commerce. And so to tax what was in the artificial would make sense. Was Caesar going after something that he was not allowed to have? Of course not. That was the ordained side of that system. Spirituality is not involved in money. Where it gets involved in the money causes the problem. Rationalized, UN agenda, registered 501c3 religious movements that I get ridiculous emails from trying to rationalize their position basically with the money. They're missing Matthew 6:24 because they can't read it because it would just ruin them instantly and they don't know where to go from there. But when it says you cannot serve, that means work for, God and mammon cannot means impossible. So please stop sending me emails regarding rationalization to do something that God said was impossible through the words of his son. And these are emails coming in from supposed devout Christians. They even send me emails saying, go to this guy's video on BitChute to tell me that this is their master and guru for Jesus Christ. And I'm going, I'm not trying to be a master or a guru for you. I have nothing to do with that. Your master is Jesus Christ. When you accept him spiritually, that's the sovereignty. So you're a subject of him because he purchased you. In the legal sense, the state would own you when you surrender yourself to the state. And of course, what does the state place upon you? All the burdens that happen with people who deny the freedom that came and the liberty that came from the Messiah and what he came to do, which was to cancel all sin, debt, and guilt. So when we're on this subject matter of mankind, I put it up there, this seems to really put off the New Agers, especially feminist groups, which they're harming themselves because they're not realizing that mankind is the original terminology, not humankind. Humankind was installed into the language not for a good reason. It was for the purpose of representing something on a derogatory sense towards what mankind was. It was not including this idea that you would never have an understanding of men and women separated under one category, calling it humankind. It was clearly understood from the book of Genesis that mankind, man came first, then God took of the man and made a woman. And if women are going to remove the terminology or the word woman, then they'd be removing the very word, because they're not saying they're not women. That's for sure. We know that. They'll still declare they're women in today's society. But woman comes from the original root meaning of womb, man from Hebrew, which meant it was a man with a womb, which could only relate to the Genesis account of creation of man and where women came from. So they're kind of like contradicting themselves, because somehow they've been installed some crazy feeling that that would be a derogatory terminology or a word to be known by as a female. So mankind was deceived into this idea of humankind, because this is where idolatry comes in. The ones with enlightened knowledge, even though they may be using it improperly, and we'll call these societies that are actually opposed to God, opposed to truth, operating a satanic occult system, They love you embracing the term humankind because that's the idolatry. That's the image of a man. That's something made in man's image, not made in God's image. So this humankind is part of the legal system, which runs a whole different system than truth, and it runs in fiction. So it brings people into false belief, not true belief. So when the parents are filling out a statement of birth record, and the wording on most of the statement of birth records have the parents saying that what they're putting down on the paper is to their best of their belief and knowledge, it doesn't mean that their knowledge is accurate, but it's accurate to the best in the legal sense, because the surname in the legal is correct, okay? It is considered to be sufficient to complete the document. It did not say anything about truth. The Vital Statistics Acts worldwide operate under statute law, which comes actually from a statute, okay? And it's different when you're dealing with God's law versus man's law, but God's law, far different, dealt with truth. Man's law brings in fiction. And so in statute law, it's a permanent legal document, and the only thing that's legal in the name on the document is the surname. But it's leaving the option whether or not the child could choose either positions, either roads, one dealing down the legal path, they're going to engage in commerce, and one that would deal with the spiritual path. Now, even if the parents put the given name down on the document, the legal government has no authority to enforce that unless the child at age of election consents to go down the other side. So there's a lot of meat and potatoes on the videos that we've done prior on this that shows what goes on. But in the sense, there's two things that went on. In with what happened with my fleshly father filling it in, he was mentioned in section 15, not by name, but in category of what he was doing, as a legal authority over the legal child. He decided to add the given name on, or the forename, onto the birth registration document. And it was noted that he did so. It was noted, surprisingly, as an addition, almost what is opposite, because surnames are additions. But in the legal sense, the given name is an addition, not the surname. So in the spiritual sense, you add a surname onto a truthful name, that's an addition. But when we're talking about in the legal document, it was there showing that my fleshly father had filled in an additional name, my given name, onto the document, and it was noted on there. But it also, in section 15 of the Ontario Vital Statistics Act, it noted also a scenario where the parent may have known something ahead of time and realized that's up to the child to decide at age 18. And it gives the option where, in the event there was no forename on the registration, clearly he's telling you there was a registration done, because in legal, the only thing that the registration is the surname. That's the only thing the state could require, because the given name is private, does not belong to the state. That's what private ultimately means, not belonging to the state, one's own, which allows you to have a choice where you're going to place your fidelity or loyalty to when you come to age of discretion and knowledge. Which side are you going to choose? Are you going to choose the kingdoms of men run by Satan, or are you going to choose the kingdom of God in its supremacy with his son Jesus Christ? So the two options were there, and in section 15, if the child decided to join the legal system, then he would consent to put his name onto the registration, his given name, and upon giving or placing his name on the registration document, then he would pay the appropriate fee, because before that there could be no way for the government to issue a birth certificate. They require the given name on there to show consent. even though it is an inducement and it also is a direction towards fiction and fraud. But fiction and fraud requires consent in order to perform. So next we go down the line. So the humankind deception leads into false belief, which leads into the Babylonian idea of prostitution, because prostitution is the definition also of a hireling, a mercenary, someone who will sell their body for money. It is not directly related to selling your body for sexual activity. Its original meaning in Samuel Johnson's dictionary 1755 is based on prostitution was a hireling. Now, when you look at the term idolatry, its root etymology is hired servant wages. Someone that would sell themselves into an idolatrous scene. So when mankind became deceived into Satan's world, he became a product called Humankind, which is now run by this UN false belief system that now you have human rights that are granted to you that can be taken away, just as Justin Trudeau said to the Canadian populace regarding the fact what they were going to enforce during mandates that they were putting in place on medical enforcement, and saying that they would basically bypass everything because you really didn't have standing. So they were going to use a loophole. It's called the notwithstanding clause in the charter, because the title, the surname, belongs to the state. It's commerce. It's not a natural name. It's foreign to truth. It's fiction. And therefore they can pull that out of it, pull the rug from underneath of you, because you really don't have standing. So you will fall. So the Babylonian Empire that runs the commerce is involved in what is considered to be consensual human trafficking. So the system itself, the Social Security program, the Social Insurance program, is the largest program of human trafficking, of consensual prostitution and commerce. And that's why in Canada we have the House of Commons. Commons, or commoners, in its original sense means prostitute. So it's a house of prostitution, and therefore you have a representative there who literally controls that, like a John. So your minister who represents you in Parliament in the House of Commons is just like a John, or someone who pimps somebody on the street in the world of a trick. So prostitutions do tricks, and tricks are for kids, because kids come from goats who don't get the message. So if you're out there flying around a sheeple sign, you didn't get the message, because Jesus said that the sheep are on his side because they're humble. The goats are stubborn, who want to stay and remain on the legal side and do not want to forsake all. They want to be part of the legal kingdoms. So I think we have to really take an in-depth look. That's why these videos are taking a little longer to do, because I found that from the emails I was getting in, somehow it was a deer in the headlights look, right over top of the head. No one saw or read or basically got the message. So they're not seeing and they're not hearing. They're closing their ears and going la, 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 because they don't want to hear the law. Remember, Christ brought the remedy that if the law had been in place, you would have perished, because you would have been judged according to the law that took down Adam. Christ came and brought the escape clause to take you out from the actual execution of the law, which was death. And that's why the legal system operates in the idea of the dead, the corpse, the body corporate. So legal is opposite to grace, and you can't mix the two together. And hopefully people are going to understand this, that the remedy is not going to come between being deceived or mixed up in between the two. What is deception? In the legal dictionary, to deceive means to basically induce someone to believe something which is false is true. Welcome to the Garden of Eden with Satan telling Eve to do something that was going to lead her right into disaster. What's the next basically definition that links to deception? Is the word legal fiction. The assumption in the law that something which is false is true. How many times do I have to keep on repeating it? It'll be over and over again. People complain that I'm being repetitive. Well, they're not listening, and therefore I'm just going to have to keep doing what I'm doing.